Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 11th episode of Three Life Changing Tips from Highly Effective People. And today we are honored to have Dave from Denver, USA in our show. Welcome, Dave, to the show.
Hello there. Hi, everybody.
Welcome, Dave, and a little bit about Dave. So, Dave is um, uh, blind from birth, but he has amazing abilities. He's an author, speaker, and also a comedian. And he teaches that how should we deal with people, and having a disability is not a hindrance but an asset. And we will know more about him during the show. Dave, do you want to introduce yourself?
I would love to. Thank you very much for having me on the show. Hello, world. Um, wow, this is crazy. I've never done this before. So, as you said, I am totally blind and have been since birth. And wow, sorry, totally lost my train of thought because all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, we're live, man. Um, I've never done anything like this, doing something overseas. It's
Mhm.
10 in the morning here, and I'm not really awake. I'm not a morning person.
You have
Uh,
your coffee?
I bolted down a cup of coffee before I got on camera here. So, hopefully I look decent and they threw me in the barber chair and everything like that. So,
You're looking
um,
handsome.
what's that?
You're looking very handsome.
Oh, well, thank you. I clean up good for being isolated. I have not left my house since the day after Thanksgiving, whenever that was. Um, so, so thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Welcome. Yes, so everyone, in the first 10 minutes, we will go through the three tips that Dave has for us today. And in the second part of the show, Dave will share a little bit about his life and we will have a chance to learn from him. And if you have questions, you can also write in the comments. So, Dave, let's move to the tip number one.
So I have a coaching program that I call Stop, Look, and Listen, and I'm going to use that formula for these three tips of how to deal with, or not deal with, but maybe what happens when you encounter somebody such as myself who has a disability. I can speak for people with physical disabilities, such as blindness or people in
Mhm.
wheelchairs and things like that, because that's been my experience. So the first tip I would have is, let's say you see me with a cane or a guide dog walking in an airport. The first tip being stop. Maybe not physically stop, but maybe
Mhm.
stop in your head and think, there's somebody walking towards me. What should
Mhm.
I do, if anything? Uh, Sometimes people just panic because it's the unknown, right? We
Yes.
all we all get afraid of oh God, I don't want to make a mistake. What do I do?
Mhm.
And everybody does it. It's a human thing.
Yes.
But the first tip I would say is just stop in your mind and just go, okay, hmm, new situation. What do I do? Do I do anything? Maybe this person knows exactly what they're doing. Uh,
Mhm.
Maybe I'm jumping to conclusions. I get a lot of people, especially in airports for some reason. Uh,
Mhm.
I'm walking down the terminal with my cane and a suitcase or whatever, and a lot of people just are, and they're trying to be helpful, and it's perfectly fine. But they're like,
Mhm.
"Do you need help?" Um, Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't.
Mhm.
Uh, but just sort of stop and take a quick like mental. Oh, that's
Mhm.
different. Okay, what do I do?
Yes. So, what should you do in that case normally? How do you react?
Well, in that case, that that leads to the second tip. Should I go to the second one?
Yes, please.
The second one is look, and by that I mean look at the person. Um, Oftentimes, if you see a cane, or especially if you see a dog, right? There are no guide dogs with mange. You've never seen an ugly guide dog, right? They're all cute.
Mhm.
I used to
Mhm.
have one,
Yes.
but look at the person that's with the dog or in the chair or with the cane, because often we just see the accessory and not the person. And it could very
Mhm.
well be that I know where I'm going and I'm okay. Uh,
Mhm.
or sometimes people have said to me, Dave, you don't look blind. This eye is a prosthetic, my right eye. This one is
Mm-hmm.
not, but it moves a little bit. Um, and so some people think I can see a little bit. I can't. I never have.
Mm-hmm.
So I can, speak from congenital, but I again kind of predicated on that instant reaction of like they don't look at the person. My wife was in a wheelchair, and half the time they looked at the chair, not the very articulate, although small, individual in the chair.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you just kind of take a moment to be like, okay, not going to panic, don't know what to do, but I'll figure something out. So just sort of, like I said, kind of look, assess the situation. Now, the other thing I will say is when
Mm-hmm.
I have a cane and I'm moving my cane, I don't know, can you see my hand?
Yes.
So, like my cane, if my finger is my cane and it
Mm-hmm.
goes like this in front of me,
Mm-hmm.
I move it back and forth. I get a lot of reactions because that thing kind of looks scary moving at you. And
Yeah.
a lot of us walk pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
If I know where I'm going, usually I walk pretty fast. And when I had my dog,
Mm-hmm.
I walked really actually quite fast. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I get it. The instant reaction is, oh shit, don't get hit by the cane. Um, and a lot of that is that it doesn't hurt usually. It might hit you in the ankle. Uh, when I was in high school, I wanted to put electrodes on my cane and make it into a cattle prod, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. But it was tempting because I went to a high school of 3,500 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
So your tip number two is that for everyone, when you see a blind person, you need to see the person, not the situation, or do not generalize it.
right,
Do not see the circumstances, but try to assess the situation of the person, right?
correct.
And do not panic.
Yeah, and we all panic. We all panic at the unknown. Um,
Mhm.
and tip number three. Should I go to the third? Or
Yes, please.
okay, sorry, I'm bad with time. I talk a lot. Tip number three is listen.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, I will be asked nicely, excuse me, do you need help? Can I help you? And I appreciate them asking. The irony is sometimes that when I do need help, nobody asks, but maybe that's just me and the facial expression I have. But oftentimes, and I don't know why this is,
Mhm.
uh, they will say, do you need help? Let's say again, I'm in the airport.
Mhm.
And I say, no, I'm okay, thank you. And the response is usually, are you sure? And I'll admit, sometimes it's me being stubborn and saying,
Mhm.
no, when actually I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess I do need help. But sometimes, I'm okay. I can figure things out. But it's usually that third time. Some people, are you sure? Yeah, I'm okay, thanks. You sure you don't need help? Yeah, I'm okay.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I give off the vibe that, like, I need help, but uh, usually usually I'm pretty honest and direct, so no is
Yes.
usually is okay. But there's that, like, I have a rule of three. That's why it's stop, look, and listen. There's three. Like if I say
Mhm.
yes, then let me talk you through how I need help.
Yes.
I think as we were talking before, when I answer a question, oftentimes, and again, we all do it. It's human. We're not listening to what the person's saying as much as we could because
Mhm.
we're thinking in our own heads, oh God, I don't want to really mess this up.
Mhm.
I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Yes.
Um, and not always listening to the response that we're given because we're trying to formulate our own response.
True.
I get it. I've done it. We all do it
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
we're afraid. A lot of it is the fear of the unknown. And so tip number three is just listen and say, okay, cool. You don't need help. Great. Uh, a lot of people with disabilities will tell you pretty straightforward, yes, I need help. No, I
Mhm.
don't. Um, part of it too is I think that I can't make eye contact.
Hmm.
So because I can't look someone in the eye, sometimes that's unnerving because
Yes.
we're so based, it's a visual society. I can't look into this, despite the fact that we're on camera, I can't
Hmm.
look at you in the camera, right? It's the same sort of
Hmm.
thing in a physical situation. I can't look at you and make eye contact to say no, I'm okay. So there's that like kind
True.
of
Without even saying, you can nod and you can we can give expressions.
right.
So what
But
I
but if
understood is
you do
that.
that, I won't know.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. So I was doing it already.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
so because it's a habit.
Or exactly.
So,
And you know what? I've done it in a room full of blind people. I'll freely admit it. I've been like, I just nodded. And
so it
I
means
went,
that this.
I went, oh God, I'm with a bunch of blind people. That's not going to help.
Mhm.
I've done it.
Yes, 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 yes.
I'll freely admit I've done my own, things. So
Mhm.
stop and think for a sec, look at the person and listen to what they're saying. Maybe I think tone of voice, because because society is very visual. One thing
True.
I teach in my coaching program is to listen to tone of voice a lot more. Um, I tend to listen to people's voices like music because I was trained as a musicologist, and
Hmm.
my brain just works in like music
Hmm.
terminology and just I think in music. So, but just like a facial expression, tone of voice can be deceiving, and so I try
Hmm.
and teach to really like listen to what a person has to say, and how
Yes,
not always what they say, but how they say it.
yes.
Politicians are masterful at this, you know.
True.
I'm not going to go there, but
Yeah,
it works, and it's not always what they say; it's how they say it, how they, it's also their facial expressions.
true.
Um,
Mhm.
so those are the three tips that I have.
So yes, in the end, I will ask you to summarize it also, so that people who joined later, they can also understand it. But what I understood till now is that, and even from the conversation before the show, that we every one of us need training, to how to deal with the situation, especially with the people who have little bit of disabilities, so that we do not hurt them. And of course, we do not try to be extra helpful. That can be annoying also. You told yourself that if we don't know how to react and we are extra helpful, that is not needed. It is also a botheration, to find a proper balance
Right,
and to understand the feelings of everyone is very important, right?
right. I,
Mhm.
I agree.
Okay. Mhm.
Yeah.
So, guys, these were the three wonderful tips from Dave. In the end of the show, I will ask him to repeat or summarize the three tips. So, we will go for a small break, and after that, we will know more about the life of Dave. So, welcome everyone. So, we have Dave with us. He's an author, speaker, and comedian. Blind from birth, but he teaches that having a disability is not a hindrance but an asset. And Dave really focuses on demystifying the public's perception of how to interact with people with disabilities, because we all normally are not teach these things in the school or in the universities. And he is also a founder of In-Sightful Living, and he works as accessibility consultant. He aids organizations to enhance their systems, environments, and cultures to be supportive of people with disabilities. So, Dave, tell us about your early lifehood. Because you said you never saw in your life, you were blind by birth. So for us, for many people, it is difficult to imagine this totally, right? Because
Mhm.
so tell us about from the childhood and how you have come so far in life, and anything you want to share today.
Well, thank you. And thank you again for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. This is a lot of fun. I was born 3 months premature. I have a fraternal twin who is sighted. He's nothing like me. Love him dearly. We're just completely different people. Um,
Mhm.
he's got a wife and two kids, lives about 45 minutes south of me. And hi there. And let's see, I
Mhm.
had a detached retina in my left eye and my right eye They tried to do a surgery that ended up destroying the eye. So this one's the right eye. Got my finger just below my right eye is a
Mm-hmm.
prosthetic. The left one is real, but the retina has basically was lasered to the back of the eye. It doesn't move. So there's a little bit of light perception in the left eye. I
Mm-hmm.
went to mainstream regular public school. There's a school for the blind that I've been to, but I didn't go there. But
Okay.
I went from elementary school through high school with, everybody else was sighted. I was the only blind person in the school. I
Mm-hmm.
went to the University of Denver for 2 years, and then I was transferred to the University of Colorado at Boulder.
Okay.
And in 2011, I met the woman who became my wife in 2014. Her name
Mm-hmm.
was Priscilla. She was in a wheelchair and had brittle bones. She was 34 inches tall. And
Mm.
we were married for just under 3 years. And she passed away in 2017 from a brain aneurysm,
Oh,
which was not
sorry to hear about the
expected.
loss.
Yeah, it was definitely not expected. Her health was probably was failing quite fast, and it happened. Um, and I lost my wife, and then my mother-in-law of a heart attack, and then I had to put my guide dog down 11 months later. So
Mm.
three deaths that were the only one that was maybe expected, unfortunately, was the dog because she was almost 14. But after I graduated with a master's in musicology in 2014 or in 2013, and then
Mm-hmm.
after Priscilla's death, I wrote a book about us called Prave, which is Prave. It's Priscilla
Mm-hmm.
and Dave and Proud and Brave. The full title is Prave: The Adventures of the Blind and the Brittle, and it
Mm.
is available on Amazon and just released in audio. I just did an audiobook version of it.
Okay, I will definitely get it.
And it is a love story and is full of humorous things that happen to us, things because I was her arms, I was her arms
Mm.
and legs and strength, and Priscilla had a stroke in 2011, so I was kind of her
Mm.
word finder and short-term memory, and then she was my eyes, and we paired well, and we had a wicked sense of humor about things, because you have to. So
Mm.
I shared some of the stories in that book, um,
Yes.
and I've been doing, like I said, I have a coaching program called Stop, Look, and Listen, and I've been doing
Mm-hmm.
accessibility consulting for screen reader users. So my phone and my computer talk to me very fast, uh, something like 200, 300 words a minute. Uh, think of your Siri or whatever you've got, but at like 300 miles an hour. Uh,
Yes, I think I heard the voice in
yeah, you
during
did.
the voice message. So
Yeah.
I'm also curious about it, you know. So I'm writing, you're completely blind, and I'm writing you voice, the text messages, and you're replying me fast. So, what kind of softwares are you using actually?
Yeah, so it's called a screen reader. On my phone, I'm using what's called VoiceOver on the iPhone.
Okay.
It's native to the iPhone, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't have an Android, but they've
Mm-hmm.
got screen readers for them, and my computer, my PC talks as well. Screen readers have been around for a good while. I've been a
Mm-hmm.
screen reader user for about 25 years, and so a lot of accessibility people. There are some native users of screen readers, but it's kind of amazing to find how many people aren't native users that are following guidelines that are great. I appreciate the what's called the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG, but I
Mm-hmm.
think having native users like myself test the pages and the sites
Yes.
and the apps is
Mm-hmm.
really what's important. And in my company, Insightful Living, in-Sightful Living is what I kind of talk about on my accessibility page, of like, you can make a website accessible, but is it usable? Is it functional?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Test it with the people. So, or same with a mobile app, you know. Luckily, getting
Okay.
on here, for example, the live stream, some of the live stream platforms are not the most accessible, and I can't use them. This one actually worked out fine.
That's
So
good.
yeah, I know when I was sending you voice messages, I had to keep moving back and forth because they only give you a minute's worth of audio. So I had to make sure. So when you heard blah, 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 that was me
Yes.
checking the time of the voice messages. So I
Uh-huh.
love what I do. As an entrepreneur, I can make my own schedule. And it was like, oh, you can be your own boss. Yes, but you have to have discipline. And
Yes.
but I think the way things have gone with everything being virtual, it's put a lot of us on kind of a more even playing field. Um,
Mhm.
and we don't have to worry about physically getting into the office every day or whatever. So that's helped. And I think a lot of people have realized during this time that,
Yes.
making things virtual has made a lot of people realize, oh, my site's not accessible. Because by making your site accessible and usable, your bottom line will increase.
True. Absolutely true.
Your market share increases. It's either 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 people in the United States have a disability of some kind. You get
Mm.
5 people in the room, one of them is going to have some sort of disability, whether that's cognitive, whether it's physical, whether it's a learning disability. And you have to have a website or an app that can help that person use your service, or they're going to find another website or app that does the same thing.
True.
And it's sometimes kind of confounding when I try and tell people, hey, do you realize that if you make this accessible, you'll increase your market share by 25%? They go, oh, okay, great. And they just kind of move on. But some people I've said that to, and they're like, wait, say that again. Yeah, 25% more
Hmm.
market share, because people such as myself will use your site and they will advertise it to other people.
Mm.
Conversely, if your site's not accessible, I'll advertise that it's not accessible. That said,
Yes.
there have been lots of people that unfortunately make their living from suing, from doing from lawsuits of your site isn't accessible, this isn't accessible, and I blah 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 blah.
Hmm.
It That's not, I don't think, a good way to go about it.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's necessary,
Yes.
but some people use it as the first line of defense, and I don't think
Mhm.
that's a good way to go about it.
So
Um,
we are talking about accessibility here, and you are trying to improve the lives of other people with disabilities by helping or offering this service to test the accessibility. But let us quickly little bit talk about the people like who don't have this visual impairment, but we need to educate them also about the feelings about the blind people and how to help them and how not to over help them, so that
yeah.
tell us something about this.
I would just say don't be afraid to ask questions. I've been asked some very strange questions, but
Hmm.
they make for great comedy skits, I'll say that much. Uh, but, you know, there's this fear
Hmm.
of offending people. And I've never been a big fan of like a lot of political correctness. I'm not saying don't be a jerk, right? Like have some tact,
Yes.
but also chances are the question you have is a question I've heard before.
Yes.
Or if I don't know the answer, I will tell you. I don't have an answer for you, but I can find out. Um, you know, there's like you were saying, there's that balance of like, don't try not to
True.
condescend, but also, you know, be sensitive to some feelings. Now, I'm a pretty blunt person,
Hmm.
and there are other people out there who might not be quite as forthright about how
Yes.
they feel if you offend them, uh, and I get
Yes.
that. So I don't want to be. I can speak for myself as somebody who is not easily offended and not easily phased. Um,
Mhm.
this has been my experience that people with congenital disabilities, people who, like myself, have been blind since birth, there's a little more of that sort of I don't get offended easily, uh, instead of some people who have acquired disabilities. Now, that's a generalization.
Hmm.
I know that. I'm generalizing. You get in trouble when you generalize. But
Hmm.
I some people because it's acquired, right? Because they're still learning about their disability.
Yes, yes,
So I want
that's
to take that
absolutely
into
true.
account and say
Hmm.
that people who have acquired disabilities, I,
Yes.
I, I don't know what it's like to have an acquired disability. Now, when my wife was alive, she had the congenital brittle bone disorder, but
Hmm.
later on, she had a stroke. And so she had to relearn how to speak and read and write. And
Mm.
she had an acquired disability. And for her,
Yes.
it was an eye opening like, oh, these are things I took for granted.
Mm.
And she said before, you know, I want to talk and speak for, we were going to go on speaking tours. And she said, I want to
Hmm.
speak for people who don't have the voice, because she
Yes.
had to relearn her words and relearn
Mm.
how to read and write.
Yes.
And
Yes, so that's very important because normally we don't know about these feelings, and we need to be taught also a little bit, or we need to discuss about these things. On our show, we had also once an ex-airport Navy pilot. So he was a fighter pilot, and then later on, our guest later on he lost his both eyes completely,
oui.
so he cannot see anymore. So when
Mm-hmm.
he was sitting also he could not see at all. But at so his eyes were so sharp. He was a fighter pilot, and later on he
Right.
cannot see at all. He cannot see me.
That's
And
painful.
then of course it's a and it happened because of some tumor actually.
Oh wow. So it
So
wasn't
but when he's
militarily
learning,
related.
but he was also really brave person like you, and of course we learned a lot from him. And today actually we learned a lot from you, because as I
Awesome.
said in the start of the show, before going live, I asked, I was really not sure how to mention blindness,
Yeah.
so not to hurt you, you know.
Right. And I get that a lot. And you know what? Everybody does it. I want to point that out. I do it. Like if I come up to a situation that I don't know, everybody does that. Where you're like, um, I don't want to offend you. So who knows? Somebody might write here and be like, "Oh, well, you're hypocritical." Well, I'm human. Um,
Mhm.
but I know what I want to acknowledge. I know what it's like to be the person on the other side and say,
Mhm.
I don't know what to do. I don't want to offend. I don't want to offend. It
Mhm.
takes a lot to offend me, but also, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. I'm a
Mhm.
pretty loud, opinionated person, and
Yes.
I try not to offend. If I offend,
Yes.
apologize. So,
Yep.
I want to acknowledge I've been on both sides of the equation, if you will.
Mhm. So it was a pleasure to have you on our show. In the end, I will ask you to tell us about the three tips again, very in a small summary.
Three tips. So,
Yes.
using the stop, look, and listen formula that I have. Number one, stop. If you see a person such as myself with maybe a physical disability coming towards you, let's say on the street or in the airport, um, stop mentally maybe and just like do a quick think. Okay, this person's coming towards me. Do I
Hmm.
need to do anything? What do I do?
Okay.
Number two, look at them and see the person, not just the person's cane or wheelchair or dog. Like there's a person attached to those things, and take them in. Um,
Very nice.
and number three, listen. If you ask me, do I need help, and I say no, usually the response is, "Are you sure?" And if I say, "Well, maybe," then okay, go with it. If I say, "No, I'm okay," then move. Just say okay. Sometimes I'll get a person a third time being like, "You're sure you don't need help?" And I'm like, "No, I'm okay. I'm just walking down the street. Just taking a walk." Um, that doesn't happen all the time. Like I said in the beginning, these things are kind of generalizations, and I would say, you know, 85% of the time people are cool and they're like, all right, cool, you don't need help, and we go on with our lives. But I think a lot of people, as far as listening,
Hmm.
listen in their head a little too much. Sorry,
Okay.
table moved. They listen a
Hmm.
little too much and aren't quite paying attention to what I have to say. So
Hmm.
those are the three tips
Very nice three
not
tips.
so quick summary.
Yeah, not too quick. No, but it was very nice three tips for the people who joined later. And Andrew, he's also from Germany, and he's saying that in general, be aware of your surroundings and the rest should follow.
Right. if you have comments, by the way, I'm not reading them because my screen reader's off. So, but
Mhm.
yes,
Yes. So it was a pleasure to have you here. And in the end, I will ask you to tell about your book again because it's really emotional the way you told me. Maybe you can briefly tell about the book. Uh, and then it's time to say goodbye. But we will remain in contact.
yeah. So the book is called Prave, P as in Paul or Priscilla, Rave, The Adventures of the Blind and the Brittle. If you type in Prave on Amazon, it'll be the first thing that comes up. It's a story about my late wife Priscilla, because Prave is Priscilla and Dave, and proud and brave. And it's our love story in life, but also it's a story about disability advocacy. And the book
Mhm.
has just come out. I did an audio recording. So if you've got 4.5 hours, take a listen. It's on Audible, and it was a lot of fun to do. And I own a company called In-Sightful Living, where you can find out more about my coaching and my accessibility consulting. So it's in-sightfulliving.com. And thank you again for having me on the show. And I hope that my stories and humor and tips have been informative. I really enjoy doing
Yes.
stuff like this.
Of course, these three tips have been really informative and your story. And you're a really brave person. And we learned a lot. And you can hear my son also in the background.
Hey, got to make
Yeah.
noise.
Yeah, so that's also great to make noise.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was a pleasure to have you on the show, and we will remain in contact. And I'm really inspired, and I will definitely take your book, read it, and learn a lot from it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.